Okay. Very good afternoon to all of you who are joining us from India, and still good morning for those who are maybe joining us from Europe or any other part of the world. Welcome to today's webinar on the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship Call 2026, How to Write a Successful and Competitive Proposal. Um, I suppose that many of you already have joined our previous webinar last month on the call itself, where we gave you an outline and overview about the postdoctoral fellowships and how to apply to them, the different eligibility criterias, and kind of the background, the rationale about the call, but also more about the content, what this call is all about. Today, this is kind of a follow-up where we go much more in depth. We have some excellent speakers lined up for you. We have our main speaker, Christine Kraft, whom I will introduce in a second. And we also have two MSCA postdoctoral fellows who will also give you like a first-hand insight about how they wrote their proposal, how they approached this task, and how they were successful in winning the fellowship. Um, my name is Samrat. I guess you already know about your access. We're organizing a lot of info sessions on the Marie Curie actions, not only the postdoctoral fellowship, but also the doctoral networks. And so today, of course, the whole focus is on the postdoctoral fellowships. And let me now like not delay further, the main part of today's session, which will be delivered by Christine. Christine, thank you so much for joining. I'll just briefly introduce you. So we have Christine Kraft, who is the Deputy Head of International Research Cooperation at the department at the Estonian Research Council. She's the national contact point and the national delegate to the program committee for three areas under the Horizon Europe R&I program. It is the European Research Council, the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, and the widening participation and spreading excellence. As NCP, Christine consults clients on proposal preparation and project implementation. She also pre-screens application and organizes communication and training events. She's in charge of consolidating national positions on the draft work programs on the Horizon Europe. And Christine herself has a background in IT and adult education. She has been already with us last year. I can just tell you it's an excellent resource. She's with us today. So I really encourage you, to listen attentively to her. She will also be here to answer questions. So we have a Q&A chat function. So if you have any questions, please write them in the Q&A function. We will try our best to answer them. Probably we will not be able to answer all of them, but be assured we will definitely, get back to you. We will also tell you how you can, send questions, regarding your proposal, what kind of support will be there. So this now the next like 2 hours will be, dedicated to you, the opportunity for you to understand much better how a proposal should be structured. And of course, as I said, we will try to answer questions. The presentations of today's webinar will be shared with you at the end. We will also record this info session and make the recording available. Okay, that's from my side. Christine, once again, thank you so much for joining us, and the mic is yours.
Thank you very much for your kind words, Samrat, and for introducing me. And I'm very happy to be back here, and congratulations on your Access India for organizing these webinars that I think that are very useful to guide Indian applicants to the right direction in being successful with your MSCA proposals. India is one of the most successful countries when it comes to the number of successful MSCA postdoctoral fellowship grants to nationals. So it is a great honor to be the one who participates in this webinar and contributes to your success. So I will start with a very short introduction to the postdoctoral fellowships. If you're still quite new to the topic, then I recommend that you go back and rewatch the previous webinars. But today I will be actually focusing on the part B of your application, giving you some insights and some answers to most common issues that are found in the proposals. So today we are talking about Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, which are part of Horizon Europe, the ongoing 9th Research and Innovation Framework Program of the European Union. The applications will be made directly to the European Commission via the Funding and Tenders portal and will be evaluated and funded directly by the European Commission. But in every country of in Europe, you will find a national contact point, a person like me who is specialized in giving information about MSCA to applicants of that country. So you, depending on the country where the host institution is placed, where you are applying for, you will always have a source of information when it comes to your question. And of course, your host institution and your supervisor will always be the #1 contact point for your questions. So postdoctoral fellowships are all about research, but not only research. And this is one of the most important things to do when you're writing your postdoctoral fellowship application, is a little bit to switch your thinking from purely research to actually career development. So in this project, your research project is extremely important. The quality of the research is very, very important. But nevertheless, the research is just a tool for your career development. And in addition to carrying out your research project, in this project, you will develop your skills, both scientific and transferable skills. You will disseminate your research results. You will communicate about research and about your project to general population. You will develop connections with the non-academic sector to increase your employability also outside academia. And of course, you will undertake a mobility to another country and experience a completely new research environment. So the two types of the postdoctoral fellowships you are currently probably already writing are either European fellowships, where your host organization is located in one of the member states or in one of the associated countries to Horizon Europe, or global fellowship. But in case to be able to write a global fellowship, you need to have a nationality of a EU or associated country member state, or a long-time residence in one of those countries. And in addition to your main fellowship, you can also undertake secondments during your fellowship, or you can opt for an optional placement in a non-academic sector organization that goes beyond the normal duration of your fellowship. The funding is very generous. It consists of unit costs, so you are not at freedom to choose your own budget, but you are given the budget. It has a generous part that is the salary of the fellow that is paid, of course, by the host institution via an employment contract, and also includes all the taxes. And it includes also institutional unit contributions that are there for carrying out all the activities of your project, and also include an overhead for the institution. So the host institution will manage this budget on your behalf when you are successful in applying for the fellowship. And you have to make sure that what you propose is within the limits that this budget allows you to do. But this is not something that you have to focus so much in writing of your proposal. It is just something that you do in the background to make sure that what you propose is actually feasible to carry out later on. So now I'm coming to this very important slide, because the fact that the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowships are the world's largest call, I believe, with 17,000 proposals submitted last year, and the number is not likely to be lower this year. It means that the world is the material, there are materials about postdoctoral fellowships everywhere. You will find Facebook groups or LinkedIn pages or discussions, etc., etc., all kinds of different information. And it is very important that you first make sure which type of information that you are seeing on the web is trustworthy and which is not. And therefore, I am directing you to the most important sources of information here, the official documents on the pages of the European Commission and the European Research Executive Agency, and also the materials that are produced by the project called Radiance. The Radiance project unites national contact points in different member states and also associated countries, and people like me who work who are entrusted with MSCA in these countries, and we work together, funded by the European Commission, to produce materials for applicants. And one of the most lauded productions of this project are the handbooks. So I think that it is very important for you to have this information, and you can go to the website of the Radiance project and look at the Radiance handbooks. I see here that I still included the handbook for postdoctoral fellowship for 2025. In fact, the 2026 handbook is now out, so you will find it on the same page of the Radiance project under the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship materials. The Radiance submission guide is another useful document that guides you step by step through the actual website, how to approach the call, how to create your proposal there. The submission guide for 2026 will be available in July. But without further ado, let us now go to the actual data of the proposal. What we will be talking about today is the part B of the proposal, the actual proposal, the narrative proposal of the postdoctoral fellowship. And this narrative proposal, it consists of 3 chapters that are structured according to the three evaluation criteria. So your proposal will be evaluated against 3 criteria: excellence, impact, and implementation. And the structure of the first part of your narrative proposal is structured exactly according to this. So I will actually go through the different chapters, and I can see now that I am... Yes, I'm sharing the right file, I think. Okay, so going to the details of the evaluation criteria, under excellence, the evaluators will look at the project's research objectives, the methodology, the quality of the supervisor and the supervision arrangements, and your own professional experience as related to what you are proposing in your work plan. Under impact, the most important aspect is the impact of the project on your future career. The project is meant to enhance your career perspective both in academic and non-academic sectors. Then the evaluators will also look at the quality of the dissemination and communication activities, and also the impact of the project itself, that is looked at from 3 different perspectives: the scientific impact, societal impact, and economic impact. And under the last criterion, quality and efficiency of the implementation, the evaluators will look at your work plan, and they will also look at the quality of the host institution or other institutions that will participate, such as the secondment hosts. So when you start writing the application, it is actually extremely important to think of who will be the readers of your application. The evaluation system of the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship is structured in 3 steps. First of all, there will be 3 individual evaluators who are experts in your field, but they are experts not in your narrow field, but in a slightly broader field, in order to be able to read several applications and to be able to assess. Each evaluator reads roughly 10-15 applications. So they are not narrow specialists. They might not know the acronyms. They might not know the specific details of your very narrow specific research area, but they are researchers of your research field. They will first evaluate the applications individually, and they will score them. And then there is a phase called consensus phase. So the 3 individual evaluators, their scores will be joined together, and there will be a process to find a consensus about the score and the comments that they will include in the evaluation summary report. This will be monitored by more experienced evaluators who are recruited by the Commission to be vice chairs of this process. And if need be, they will send the evaluation scores and comments back to the original evaluators to make sure that they are that the scores and the comments match themselves. And then after several phases of quality control, the panel, you are submitting your proposal to a specific panel, and then the panel will meet and finally rank the proposals submitted to that panel according to the scores, and make sure that there is a consistency across the panel. And this means that in the end, you will find that the evaluation summary report reflects the original opinion of the 3 experts, and also the comments of the panel if necessary. So in this process, the most important readers are, of course, the 3 individual evaluators who will read your proposal and rank and score and comment on your proposal. And when you think of the evaluators, they will use a score, a tool like this to find a correct score for your proposal. Your score will be a figure between 1 and 5. And 5 means that there are really no mistakes. Any shortcomings are really, really tiny. And your proposal is excellent in all aspects. Very good. You will get a score between 4 and 4.9. Then there are no mistakes, but there are shortcomings in some of the parts. Good is already actually bad. When you get a score between 3 and 3.9, it says good, but in fact, someone with a score below 4 has no chances of getting funded. And of course, fair and poor are the scores that nobody wants, and which are actually reflecting that the proposal was not really put together correctly. So looking at the success rates of the previous years, in order to be funded, it is necessary to get a score around 4.5 or higher, because the competition really is tough. And that means that you cannot afford to lose any points, you can't afford to have anything missing, but you also need something special in addition to that. It means that you have to put in some effort. You have to treat your application not just as a fill in blanks type of exercise, but rather you have to compete with other excellent applicants and make sure that your application is complete, it has all the relevant information, and it also catches the imagination of the evaluators, that they really like it and they would like you to execute this project. So I encourage you to think of your evaluators when you're writing, to make sure that you are addressing this proposal correctly, that you do not include any acronyms or specific information that needs further explanation. But also think of the evaluators as human beings who are not evaluating your proposal in ideal conditions. They don't have a whole day to spend on reading your application. They would rather spend 2 hours or less on your proposal. And you have to make it pleasant for them to read the proposal and make it easy to find the necessary information, because the evaluators have no choice, but they have to evaluate each and every detail that is included in the evaluation criteria. And they have no choice but to think that some criteria are less important or more important. They will have to go through all of it. And they really are also human beings, in the sense that if you make it interesting, if you make it pleasant, they are more likely to give you good scores. So how to go about it? So first of all, I encourage you, and this slide is the only one that deviates from my plan to speak about part B of the proposal. I also encourage you to start with a part A of the proposal quite early in the process, because some aspects are included in part A which have an implication on part B. And specifically, the part A includes questions about ethics and security that you need to fill in, and you have to then elaborate more in part A part B if need be. So there is a very useful briefing video and very useful documents that help you with this. But this is definitely a part where you need to talk to your host institution, and you also need input from your host institution. So don't leave the A part to the last minute. Start with filling in the A part together with your host institution early in the process, because the ethics and security issues need probably addressing also via your part B, via methodology, and via the additional information that you can include. So the ethics issues include not only questions that we are used to associate with ethics, such as animal testing or maybe human participants, but also they have questions about lab security, for example, etc., that you might not be aware of, you might not associate with ethics issues before you see the whole questionnaire. So the first part is, I would recommend you to go through the ethics and security part, see the questions there, and talk to your host institution how to address them properly, so that they take into account the legal and regulatory framework of the country of your host institution, and with the internal procedures of your host institution regarding this type of research. But now coming to part B, I will go through the sections as they come. So I will start with excellence and finish with implementation. But I don't actually think that when writing the proposal, this kind of linear approach is appropriate. So I would rather encourage you to think of your proposal as a coherent narrative, and see the connections between the different parts. So the first part, objectives, is of course directly connected to the methods, but it also connected with a work plan, and make sure that your proposal is highlighting these connections, and it reads as a complete coherent text rather than separate parts joined together. So starting with the criterion excellence, here under excellence criterion, you are instructed by the Part B template to describe your research and innovation objectives and describe the context of these objectives by explaining what is the state of the art and how your objectives go beyond the state of the art. So here the template uses a word ambitious. It is definitely important that your proposal is a little bit ambitious, that it has goals that are make sense research-wise, but also at the same time you have to balance the ambitiousness with feasibility. Because if your proposal is too ambitious, then the evaluators might see that as a negative aspect of your proposal. So always think that this is a proposal of 2 years executed by basically one researcher. Of course, you are in a group that contributes, but you are basically doing this alone. And the objectives can't be massive. You can't change the world with these 2 years, but you need to keep these ambitious enough so that the results will have a positive impact on your career, and of course will have a positive impact on your field of research, but at the same time they are feasible to do in this one-person project within 2 years. So the objectives, there is a useful acronym that you can use to test whether you have written good objectives, and this acronym is called SMART. So you should write SMART objectives. SMART, the words that are encoded in this acronym are specific. The objectives are specific for your project. They are not too vague. Then they are measurable. It should be possible to say whether or not you have achieved these objectives or how far you are from achieving these objectives. They are attainable. This is another word for feasibility. So it should be doable within this, within the time frame and the financial frame of the project. They are relevant. They are relevant for the field of research. They are also relevant for your career. And finally, they are time-bound in the sense that you can plan according your timeline to achieve it. So using this SMART acronym, you can test whether your objectives are whether you have written good objectives. There are two types of mistakes when researchers write their objectives. The one type of mistake is that the objectives are too far-fetched, too vague. Your objective cannot be to change the world. But at the same time, the other type of mistake is when instead of objectives, people write activities, or people write methods even sometimes. And this is much more common even. So you could see objectives that the objective is to complete a database. This is an activity that you do, but you have to frame the objective to show the goal of this activity. So one suggestion for the excellence chapter, for the first part of the excellence chapter, is to think again of your application as a narrative, and to perhaps start with a very short introductory paragraph. So you can start by stating your overall aim, and then it is much easier to for the evaluator to put into context what you are going to explain in the first page of your application. The graphs and illustrations are very welcome, but they also take room, so you must be sure that they help to convey your message rather than they're just for the sake of a splash of color. And please always, instead of statements, add proof, arguments, examples, and numbers. The second criterion under excellence and the second part in your B1 is the methodology. And you are instructed to describe your methodology, to say some words about interdisciplinarity, and to tackle gender dimension and open science practices and integrate them in your methodology. So in this part of the excellence chapter, it is really important to have enough details to cover all of your objectives with methods, not leave some out, to make a very concrete connection between each scientific objective and the methodology that you will use, and to really be quite precise and thorough, because the most frequent negative comment that we always see in the evaluation reports is that there are not enough details about methodology. So methodology is actually a bridge between your objectives and your work plan. And based on the methodology that you describe, you can also detail your scientific training in the next chapter, in the next part of the excellence chapter. And the gender aspects and open science practices are actually quite specific. You will need some guidance to understand them properly. And for that purpose, I have included in the links document called Horizon Europe Program Guide. And this document really gives you quite a very, very good information about what are the gender aspects and open science practices that you should tackle under this part. And of course, the Radiance Handbook is also very handy to understand what to write there and how to refer to the correct aspects. The third part of the excellence chapter is training. And in some ways, I would say that this is one of the most important parts of your entire project, in the sense that here you start to think of career development properly. Because as I said, research is just a tool in your career development. Research is extremely important, don't misunderstand me, but it is, of course, important as your readers will also be researchers. They appreciate good research and will penalize bad research. But I think that the proper way to think of your research project is as a vehicle that will carry you from your current stage of the career to the future stage of the career. So of course, bad research will not give you a good career, so it is of ultimate importance. But here, under the third part of the excellence chapter, you actually start to build your vision, where you want to go with this vehicle of research in the future. So you start first by describing the qualities of your supervisor. It is very important that your supervisor has scientific experience in the field and in a specific subject of your project. But this person also needs to have a previous supervision experience to be able to supervise you properly during the project. And then you will go on to describe your training activities. So the training activities should be divided into two separate parts: scientific training and transferable skills training. And basically everything that you do in your project can also be seen from through the prism of training. So, for example, if you have identified some missing pieces in the methodology that you need to acquire the skills to do properly, so this is part of your scientific training. Then also any activity that you do regarding dissemination and communication can also be an opportunity to train, etc. So think of the whole project as essentially a training project. And in this chapter, in this part of the excellence chapter, you should describe all the training activities and also start a little bit to justifying them, although you justify also in the next parts, but think, why do I choose these training activities? And the answer to this, of course, lies first of all in your objectives, in your career vision, but also in your CV, because people's CV is the key anchor point for deciding what kind of training do you need. And for example, you can use in the next part your CV to give context to your choices of training. For example, if you already have a lot of experience with teaching, you of course do not need to include training in teaching in your work plan. But for example, if you have never taught a course in a university, this is a key skill to help your employability in the future in the academic sector. So you should find some ways of finding some opportunities to teach, and this can be an excellent opportunity to also give some flesh to the transfer of knowledge between yourself as a researcher and the host institution. So the training part is where you explain how you will gain from the host institution. But then you arrive in the host institution already with some skills, some knowledge, and in the two-way transfer of knowledge, you explain how the host will benefit from your pre-existing knowledge and skills. The most frequent mistake here is that it is not substantiated with specific methods of transfer of knowledge. So it is not sufficient if you just arrive there in the research group with all this knowledge in your head. You also need to describe quite precisely how you will transfer it, and the most frequent ways of transferring knowledge from you to the host institution is, for example, via department seminars or by supervising some master or doctoral students, or by teaching or some other activities that you must discuss with your host institution and describe in detail in your proposal. And when I say in detail, I mean very briefly, because you don't have much room for it, but in detail in the sense that you give the evaluator already more than just indication how it could be, but you have a plan for the transfer of knowledge. Here in the section 1.3, you also have to mention your placements or secondments if you are going to apply for them, and you explain the value and the activities that you will do during these placements and secondments. The better your supervisor, the easier it is to write this section, but it is not a competition between supervisors. So sometimes more junior supervisors can also have very the choice can be also very beneficial for your career. For example, if you're going to a group of some very, very established, very famous researcher, of course their CV and their qualifications look super good on the paper, but they might not have enough time to supervise you. So joining a group of some less established but up and going researcher might also be very, very good for your career. You just have to convince the evaluators of the qualities of your choice. So whatever choice you make, always show it as a plus, never as a minus. You don't have to apologize for your choice, but you write in a way that makes the evaluator also believe that the choice is the best one for you and your career. There is a useful document that will help you to write this part. These are the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions guidelines on supervision. And it is useful to read these guidelines and be aware of what good supervision arrangements look like. The next chapter, the next part under excellence chapter is a very personal one. And here you build on your CV that you have included in part B2. So you can start by writing this CV part in part B2 and then refer to the skills and knowledge that are specified in your CV from this section and explain how these skills and knowledge that you already have make you qualified for this project. The CV I will touch upon later, but I would recommend a hybrid approach in your CV with a traditional listed CV combined with narrative elements. And here in this section, you don't have to repeat the information that you included in your CV, but you have to highlight it or put it into context of your project. The CV part in B2 is evaluated together with your part B1. It does not have a specific separate evaluation criterion, but it is read and evaluated together with your B1 proposal. And the important thing to consider, the requirements are not very strict. The only requirement that there is that the CV should be in reverse chronological order. This is the usual way to present a CV. And it should use consecutive exact dates. In Estonia, we are not used to using exact dates in CV. We usually require researchers to indicate the years in their CV, but here they evaluate the requirements for this type of CV is really to have exact dates, and your CV should have all of the dates covered, so to speak. So there should not be gaps. The gaps should be explained. The gaps should not be ashamed of, or they are nothing wrong in your career. Also time spent doing something else than research or working in different positions, it can all be shown as useful experience that you have accumulated in order to make you a better researcher in the future. And my recommendation is to add narrative components. And I have given here on this slide some examples of narrative components that you can add to your CV. For example, you can explain after each publication what was the context, what was the main achievement, what was your contribution to this publication. When you write about your previous employment, you can provide information of your exact duties or the skills that you have obtained. If you list some conferences or other organizational activities that you have undertaken, you can give some details about that, etc. And also think about the fact that the evaluators, they do not know your country's specific conditions and environment. So, for example, if there is an award that is very famous in India, the evaluator from Estonia or Romania might not be aware of this award, so you have to explain a bit more what it means. And of course, I don't hesitate to mention any skills that you have obtained, such as supervision skills or organizational skills, management of funding or management of people, etc. All of that is useful to show to be used in the section 1.4 and also in the section 2.1. So here are a few extracts from different comments of evaluators on the excellence chapter. As I said, all evaluation criteria are evaluated on the scale from 1 to 5. There will be one score for the whole excellence chapter, not specific scores for each of the sub criteria. And also the comments are usually divided into positive and negative comments. But I must say that in the last year, the evaluation summary reports have changed. They are not so useful anymore because of the huge number of applications that is submitted to this call. So they just have a very few comments, but previously they used to have more and in-depth comments divided into positive and negative, and this gives a very good insight into what the evaluators are looking for. So if you have a view, if you have a look on the right side of the slide and look at the negative comments, and the most frequent comment that you see in many proposals that do not score very high is that there is not enough detail, so insufficiently discussed, etc. So this is the most frequent comment, and it does not mean that the applicant did not write many pages. They might have written many pages on methodology, but without giving the details and without giving the focus. So instead, using a very general statements. And the problem is nowadays that a lot of applicants use AI. This is allowed. You have to be transparent about it. You have to declare it in part B2. At the end of part B2, you have to declare the use of AI. But the problem with AI is that it can result in very generic, not interesting, not personal text, and the evaluators might not rate that very highly. So rather go for detailed, personal approach and make it interesting to read, rather than filling the pages with a lot of very generic text. I will now continue with the second chapter. First of all, you have to discuss the impact of the project activities on your career. So you started in section 1.4, the last part under excellence, explaining how your existing skills make you suitable for the project. And now you go on quite seamlessly by discussing how the project contributes to your career in the future. So you have to make a direct contact between the activities that you have planned and the impact on your future career. So first of all, it will help you immensely if you present a career vision. You know where you want to be in 2, 5, 10 years, and you show how the project effectively takes you towards that vision. But the problem with visions is that they can be quite limiting. But your goal here is to show that although you have a vision and you are moving towards it, the project actually prepares you for a spectrum of different career possibilities. So even if your career vision is towards a career in academia, do include in this section also a couple of sentences how what you do during the project will also enable you to have great employability in the non-academic sector. So what kind of skills will you build that are specifically relevant for the non-academic sector, and what kind of connections you make via the dissemination and communication efforts that enable you to be better prepared for your future career in the non-academic sector. The second part of impact is the dissemination, exploitation, and communication plan. It is just the beginning of a plan. You will have to submit a more detailed plan during your project. But this plan has to be quite specific, quite concrete. First of all, you deal with dissemination and exploitation, and then you explain your communication. For the purpose of this project and for the purpose of Horizon Europe project in general, it is useful to think of these words, communication, dissemination, and exploitation, as distinct, discrete entities. So although in common language, communication might include dissemination and exploitation as well, but for the purpose of this project, think of dissemination as disseminating the results of your project to other parties that might be interested or might be using them. Mostly other researchers, but also other target groups that might be relevant. Think of exploitation as further use of your research results. It's not only commercial use, but it can also be further research or further use for policymaking, etc. And think of communication as talking about research, about your project, about MSCA to a wider public. You choose your specific target groups amongst this wider public, and you will do some specific activities, usually with the help of your hosting institution, and convey some specific messages. So dissemination and exploitation about your research results, communication about research in general, also your results, to a wider public. All of this has to be credible and sufficiently detailed. And the dissemination part, think of also target groups outside the immediate use by other researchers in your field. Think of who needs the results of your research and which means are effective in getting these results to your target groups. So, for example, if your main dissemination channels are journals and conferences, which is not wrong, of course. If your results are important for cancer patients, they will not attend the conferences. There are different means to get this information to these target groups. So think of different target groups as well, and be precise about the communication and dissemination channels. And communication is an excellent way to also integrate your previous skills, but also learn new skills, and to use the existing activities of your host institution. You don't have to invent the bicycle every time, but instead you can jump on existing activities that target for example, wider public or school children, etc., and use them specifically for your project. And I recommend you also use this section to think a little bit imaginatively and to be original and memorable. If everybody do exactly the same things under dissemination and communication, it is boring for the evaluator to read. So they will be they will remember you better if you propose something that is out of the box here. The last part of the impact criterion is actually quite short. You will explain the scientific, economic, and societal impact of the research. And you have to include them, all of them, only in case they are relevant for your project. Not all projects have economic and technological impact or societal impact, but all projects, of course, have scientific impact. Try to be quite precise again. Try to think of short, medium, and long-term impact, and show convincingly and support your proposal here with with figures, examples, and of course also numbers if they are available. So an example of a realistic impact is, let's say you are studying something that is part of a big picture of curing cancer. Of course, the impact of your project is not curing cancer, but you will show the evaluators how exactly the piece that you will elaborate on will fit into the bigger jigsaw puzzle of research in the future to enable breakthroughs in this field of research. And again, comments, both positive and negative, taken from different evaluation summary reports. And here you see that one of the comments is about, one of the negative comments is about being overambitious. So we see that actually quite often that there is a temptation to promise a lot of articles, for example, a lot of peer-reviewed articles. And we've seen several times that promising too many articles is actually not considered a positive aspect. So try to balance this. I would say that very often promising more than 3 publications during your fellowship is considered overambitious. And if you're promising a lot, then try to justify why you think that it is feasible. So more is not always better when you're writing this application. And now I go on to the last criterion. Last but not least, the work plan is very important part, and the work plan has to include all of the activities that you outlined before. So not only research activities, but also training, secondments, communication and dissemination. All of those have to be included in the work plan. And the plan should be broken down into work packages and should include also a Gantt chart that demonstrates how these different work packages and tasks are planned on the timeline of the 2-year project. So the Gantt chart has to include project months. So you have a Gantt chart including month 1 until month 24, or if you're going for a placement, then actually additional 6 months. And the typical mistake is to include actual years and dates. No, in Gantt chart, you are talking in project months. So you're talking month 1, month 2, etc., not January 2027 or something like that. You'd break your work plan into several work packages. A good practice is to have one work package per one scientific objective. So, for example, if you have 3 scientific objectives, you very often would have 3 work packages, 3 scientific work packages, plus you will need to have work packages for the other activities. So you might have a work package for let's say, management of the project and monitoring. You might have a work package for dissemination and communication, or you could choose to combine, for example, have a work package for dissemination, communication, and training, etc. So it is important to include all of the activities under the some work packages so that you will be able to effectively list them in the Gantt chart and not forget any part of your activities. But there is no like a fixed, rigid structure that you have to follow. There are some mandatory deliverables that you have to include that are listed in the work plan. In the work program, in the work plan, you should cover 2 or actually 3 mandatory deliverables. You should include in your Gantt chart and mark them when you will be delivering them. The first one is the career development plan, that should be submitted by the researcher together with the supervisor quite early in the project, usually within 2-3 months, but not later than 6 months after the start of the project, that details your career development goals and activities, and it can be updated yearly. Then data management plan is another mandatory deliverable that you have to submit within the first 6 months of the project. It is obligatory to all projects, and it has a fixed structure. And the plan for the dissemination and exploitation of results, it has to be submitted towards the end of the project, so you will explain how you will, beyond the lifetime of the project, disseminate and make your results exploitable. Too many deliverables are not a good idea, so don't crowd your deliverables, too many deliverables in your work plan. And there is also some good advice in the online manual that you can read and use. Read also the handbook. It is very useful in explaining how the deliverables and milestones work. But also remember that the deliverables and milestones in this project are actually for your sake. They are not something that the Commission, the European Commission, will monitor during the project. These are rather tools for you, your supervisor, and your host institution to monitor the progress of the project, and you will submit them only, you will deliver them to the European Commission only at the end of the project. So you should plan them deliverables and milestones in a way that help you and your host institution to monitor the progress. And the final criterion is the quality and capacity of the host institution. Here again, I recommend that you start with part B2. There you will have to explain the capacities of the participating organizations with the help of a table. In this table, you will include the general description of the host institution, a very brief statement about the role and profile of the supervisor, because the supervisor is already described in part B1, and then you will list the key research facilities, infrastructures, equipment, and a previous project of the host institution in a tabular format. And then coming back to this section 3.2, you will now then put this information in the context of your project and will explain how the host will also integrate you effectively in the team so that you will be able to effectively start the project from day one, who will help you, how this will be organized, etc. So this is the end of the template for B1. And if you're thinking of the continuous narrative, the coherent structure, then I would also have, if you have room, just have a couple of sentences at the end that conclude the narrative. So you started with some introductory sentences, and then now you reach the end of your story, so to speak, and you conclude the story, although the template does not require you to have this kind of end to the narrative. But from the point of view of reading it as a story, you can also end it here as a story. So some comments of the evaluators on the not impact but implementation. Sorry about the mistake in the heading. A lot of negative comments often are associated with risk assessment. This is something that is not does not come easy to many applicants. So pay attention and discuss this with the host institution and supervisor, and try to identify both scientific risks and managerial risks, and also have effective and meaningful risk mitigation strategies. Because very often the risks, if they are identified, they do not have a meaningful response from the applicant. The risk mitigation of just monitoring or something is not sufficient. So this was my last slide. Apologies for being a little bit over time. And I will also be answering your questions in the question and answer session very soon. And I will now give floor back to Samrat to introduce the next speakers, but I will busy myself with a question and answer tool here to answer some of your questions already before the question and answer session of this webinar.
Thank you so much, Christine. No break for you. As you can, if you open the Q&A, you will see there are like many questions. During your presentation, I've been trying to like provide answers to the most basic ones, but you will see that there are quite some detailed questions as well waiting for you. Thank you so much, and really thanks again for excellent presentation. I think it was so informative and so valuable. I feel like uh, those who are really seriously considering and applying for this year's call got a lot of information output from your presentation. And as we already said, we will share Christine's presentation afterwards, after the webinar, with all of you. So you will have enough time to go through these very important slides and also all the links which she has mentioned, and the resources will be made available through the slides. Thanks, Christine, for now. We will have you back later at the Q&A. But now I have the great pleasure to welcome our next speakers, which actually are, MSCA fellows who have been awarded the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship. A very warm welcome to Dr. Gautam Sharma and to Dr. Reenan Shah. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. Let me just very briefly introduce you, just in one sentence, where you are based right now, and then we would like you to introduce yourself to the audience. So our speakers are, as I already mentioned, both at the moment in Europe, if I'm not mistaken. I think, Dr. Gautam, you are at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden doing your postdoctoral research. And Dr. Reenan, you are at the Queen Mary University in the UK right now, correct? Yeah. So I would say let's start with you guys, because you are the most valuable resource we have today, of course, with Christine. But you guys have gone through the application proposal phase, so we want to hear from you how it was. How did you approach, your proposal? What tips and advice you have? I think maybe Gautam, you have prepared some slides. Arena, have you also, or both of you have? Yeah, so maybe we start with Renan. Would you like to just, first introduce yourself a bit to the audience, and then, tell us a bit more about your experience with the fellowship, and how you approached the proposal writing, and what kind of advice you would give our audience today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Samrat. I think I just joined just in time to hear what Christine had to say, especially about the risk assessment part, and I'll get to that shortly. How many minutes do I have?
So we have together combined with you and Gautam, we thought we'd have like like 25 minutes. So and then we will have a Q&A session where we also invite you guys, to participate. Yeah?
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, this is I think a gist of how I would say I would imagine writing a Queen Mary, writing an MSCA fellowship, mostly talking about all the experiences that you have collected through the years and developing it for a newer idea. So moving away from your PhD, right? Developing a newer idea, but also thinking of it as not only a project for your the discipline that you're in, but also for yourself. As it is ideally called a career advancement grant, so you have to think of it as a grant that through the period of which you receive the grant, you develop yourself, for to be upskilled, to be ready for employment, to be, thought of as an principal investigator to carry out independent research. So probably thinking about it as not merely an academic proposal, but also how it fits into your career path, and how being a fellow might help you, will help you in, in anything future you want to. And it doesn't always have to be research. It can be research, it can be academia, it can be, outside, corporate, or, the all the different sectors and industries that exist out there. I got my fellowship in 2024, and I joined in 2026. I got it in 2025 February, and joined it in 2026. So probably that answers one question which said, how much time do you get? So about a year they will get, since the last September, a year in which you can join it. For me, I work, as I think you might have seen my profile, I work at the intersection of society and environment, and I'm based at the School of Society and Environment at Queen Mary University of London, where I work on water security, where I'm trying to look at the rural-urban, spectrum of water access, also looking at gender participation in decision-making processes, and future projections of climate change on how the water access might change. So the question that, the surprise that comes up when I say I got a Marie Curie grant is also, oh, work like yours also get a grant, right? So in a sense, the work can be of variety of disciplines, and you should just think of the project as something that you would want, developing a project where you can put all the wildest ideas that you have thought of, that you can carry your research forward to. Um, Also, I would urge people from all disciplines to apply, and not think that just because it is Marie Curie that it tends to, focus on one discipline, but it does focus on many disciplines. And the last time, 30% of the funding went to social sciences and interdisciplinary sciences, and 30% to life sciences. So those were some of the numbers. But thankfully, when I was writing my proposal, I had you have to be very aware of deadlines of not only the Marie Curie proposal, but also your institutional deadlines. That is the institution that you want to work with, because the institution have their own deadlines, own expression of interest, as Christine just explained about the different form sections, right? They want you to finish the forms within the university deadlines also, so that you can go back and revise. For me, it was a very collaborative process, where I had my current mentor and the research and management team at the university that was helping me write the proposal. So in a sense, have everybody on board before you start writing the application. And for and as I mentioned, there might be some things in your lifetime of your PhD that might have might be, you can think of it in terms of how much impact it has provided. For example, for me, I was the international panel. I was a co-author, contributing author on the IPCC assessment report 6. So I was not a lead author, but even me being a contributing author to IPCC showed my experience in towards a larger network. So that was also something which I put in the front and center when I talked about impacts. And I was asked to, put it in such a way, and and when you're writing the proposal, think of the ways in which you have gained knowledge as well as imparted knowledge. This can be, you might have done workshops, you might have taught students. So all these things could also come up as a part of your proposal that you write. So going back to the strengths and the weaknesses, although the strengths, outweigh the weaknesses, we as uh, academics and researchers are very cynical. So I'll just focus on the weaknesses for now. As again, going back to what Christine said, the risks was what came up as one of my weaknesses also. They said the different risks associated for research and management were not extensively presented, and and does not describe the contingency measures. That was for the implementation part. For the impact part, they said that the activities, data exploitation activities are not clearly planned. And for the excellence part, they said, because my work is focused in the Himalayan region, how can it then be taken, how can it be translated into other regions also? So mostly in terms of, being a little ambitious, but not too ambitious about how you work. And when you're thinking about your proposal and writing it, I would also suggest thinking of it in a way that, has a short-term impact in terms of what are the immediate impacts that you might get in the first or second year, but also something that you can engage with in a long term, and how coming out of the proposal would also enable you to work on the ideas that you have developed through life. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Rina. This was very, very interesting to hear about your journey, and also we will, come back to you after we hear from Gautam, because we still need to know more about your journey, and and also the key advices you would like to give to the audience. But thank you so much for now, and Gautam, I think you also have some slides ready. You mentioned, and yeah, okay, you're already up. Perfect.
Are they visible and am
Yeah.
I audible?
Yeah, very
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Samrat, for organizing this. I've been a beneficiary of Euro Access in 2021 on the other side, and it feels very happy to be on this side. So just want to tell the applicants you are already one step closer to the fellowship. And I'm going to share my experience with the MSCA application. With a short introduction, I am trained in science, technology, and innovation policy studies, which is at the intersection of management and social sciences. We study social implications of innovations and technology. I graduated with a MPhil PhD in 2021. Then I started working at Indian Institute of Science as a postdoc. When I got my MSCA grant, I moved to Lund University in Sweden in October 2022, where I was a MSCA researcher for 2 years. And after that, I joined Karolinska Institute to continue my postdoctoral training in Sweden. And just to give an idea why I chose MSCA, I submitted my PhD dissertation in 2020 during the first COVID lockdown. So I spent the whole lockdown searching for postdoctoral positions, and I realized that all the positions which were advertised in my area were like all project-based positions, and they required candidates who were familiar to the context where the project was being held. So, for instance, in Germany, in Austria, in Netherlands, and I come from social sciences, so these require the researchers to have the knowledge of the context, the knowledge of the local language. And I realized that I am not a fit for those positions. And so applying for fellowships was the only way out for me to have a foreign training, because foreign training is also much needed in my research area, as the field of innovation studies, or STS, what is it called, is very much a Eurocentric field. A lot of things happen in Europe, a lot of conferences, a lot of research groups are based in Europe. And most of the people who are employed in India, who are working on these subjects, have been trained in these research institutions. So I always thought that this is a missing thing in my CV, and I should go out to fill this gap. Third, of course, was the financial and research autonomy that a fellowship provides. A fellowship like MSCA provides. It gives you a very generous fellowship. Of course, there are social security contributions. You have to pay taxes, but even after that, the mobility allowance, the family allowance, if you are eligible, is very good. And then there is specific aspect of 24,000 euros, which is specifically for your research and training activities, which you can use for traveling to conferences, which you can use for uh, doing training in different parts of the world in your field, and you can use that for hiring research assistants and whatever that helps you in doing your research. And lastly, there are lots of other opportunities which comes with the MSCA also, such as some follow-up grants, some offers to collaborative grants with your PI, build on other projects. For instance, Vinnova in Sweden had a specific grant for MSCA researchers to retain them in the country. So these are some of the opportunities that come up with the being a Marie Curie Fellow. This was basically my timeline. I first applied in 2020 when it used to be individual fellowship H 2020 call. I first submitted my application. Then when the results came out in February, I was not awarded, but the score was very good. I got something called the Seal of Excellence, which motivated me to go on and reapply. The comments were something which I realized that I could work on. These were not very difficult comments, and overall, the project was very highly ranked. So I resubmitted it in the 2021 call when the program changed to what is called as postdoctoral fellowship. Then finally, I was awarded in 2022, and I started my position in Lund University in from October. And I want to share some of the strategies that worked for me in my second attempt and which I did not follow in the first attempt, and that really helped me. The first was it's very important to engage with your host institutions through webinars and online events. We only exchange emails with our respective supervisors or respective host institution directors and think that is enough. But as Christina mentioned, there are specific sections in your form where you have to mention why the host is a perfect fit for you. For that, you need to understand the structure of your host institution, what kind of research groups are based, and what kind of activities they do. And now most of the activities have become hybrid in almost all the research centers. So try to engage with the host institution, ask them that whether you can also participate. Of course, there are some activities which are only for the employees, but in others, they might also invite you. For instance, if there is a research talk, if there is some kind of meeting with research groups, so you'll come to know about the structure of the research group, and then you will be able to write it more perfectly, and you will know where you fit in, what kind of expertise you are bringing to the research group, which is not there. So because this fellowship is about two-way transfer of knowledge. Second, most important is that every research institution, most of the big research institutions and universities have a research office, and these research offices have dedicated officials who help you in writing grant applications for EU projects, and they have very good guidance documents, and they provide you good feedback on your grants. I did not contact them in my first attempt, but in my second attempt I was sure to contact them, and they gave me very useful documents which were there. Some of them Christina already shared, but some of these documents are related to the other postdoctoral fellows. These are confidential, so you have to contact them through your supervisor, and then they will provide you. Third is make you I made very good use of internet. Back then Facebook was still popular, so we had a MSCA Facebook group where people used to uh, share like comments on each other's. If you were stuck on something, you could ask the community and they were able to help you. So that group was very helpful. I don't know what kind of groups are available now, but I still think that Reddit sub communities, WhatsApp groups, and maybe some kind of academia stock exchange and talk academia groups are very important where you can go and join. People also share the past proposals. Also, some people share the proposals with each other. Fourth, I would say it's very important that you ask non-specialists to read your application. Again, something which I didn't do in my first attempt, and ask like people to read. If non-specialists are able to understand your application or what you are going to do, what you are proposing to do, then I think it's a very positive aspect. Otherwise, you might have to tone down some of the jargons which you are using, because as again Christina said that many of these reviewers are going to be generalists, so they might not know something about your field. Another important thing is that you have to prepare your first draft before the summer break. Again, something which I didn't do in the first attempt. Day after tomorrow, it's midsummer here in Europe, and at least in Sweden, it's the official last working day. And most of the offices and universities are going to close for at least 1.5 months now. And there is basically no contact with anyone. People enjoy the summer holidays a lot. So it's very important that you build you start communication much before this, and by this summer break you have your first draft ready, so that when they rejoin you can start with the submission process. And lastly, uh, it's very important to distinguish between outcomes and long-term impacts of your research. something I did was I focused only on the outputs. Now, publications, conference presentations are all outcomes, but MSc is more interested in what is going to be the longer term impact. Are you going to change the scientific field? Are you going to develop a research agenda? Or are you going to shape a policy? Something like that should be visible. Not only the scientific impact, but the impact on so on your career. I have some very general advice also. First is that do not expect that you are going to be successful in the first attempt. There is always going to be a second attempt. You have to apply. I know people who have also been successful in third attempt. To give a cricketing analogy here, don't treat it as a T20 match. It is going to be a test cricket. Only that this test cricket is going to be for years. So you have to stay motivated, learn from your application, learn from your review comments, and then repurpose it. MSCA Handbook by Radiance should be your best friend. It has everything you need there. It's very important that your application has the three I's, which is international, about the mobility, why this mobility is important, intersectoral, not only academia, how are you going to involve the private sector, the non-government sector, civil society, and other sectors, and how a cross learning is going to happen. And third, interdisciplinary. It's very important that you are not only learning from other disciplines, but you are also borrowing the methods, or your results are going to contribute to other disciplines also. So it's very important to bring this interdisciplinary aspect in your research. If your proposal feels like you're only going to stay within your niche discipline, then it's not going to work with the reviewers. Write for the non-experts. Think of your reviewers as generalists. So write like it should be easily accessible to them, the writing. Use all kinds of host support. Please contact your host supervisors and ask them to connect you with the research office of your universities. If your university or your institution doesn't have a research office, then please contact the national contact point of your host country. They will provide you very important and very useful documents also, and they might also be organizing very similar kind of workshops. Some workshops might be very much more specific, very limited to few people, where people exchange proposals with each other and learn. These workshop these small proposal development workshops are also very important. And then lastly, again, Christina has emphasized, I won't take much time. It's very important to give attention to dissemination and communication. I think we concentrate a lot on our like scientific outputs, but communicating the results to general public, to school students, to citizens is even much more important than just to the scientific community. And last thing is something I want to talk about, how we should bring our Indian academic experience into MSCA, because we come from a very different context from a European context. So first, of course, is that when you write your application, do not understate your achievement. I feel that we Indian scholars, Indian researchers are a bit modest. So we have to state our achievements with much more evidence, with much more confidence in our writing, and show our intellectual contribution. But at the same time, we should, in our applications, avoid prestige labels. This is something very important when you are doing any type of grant for European projects. Avoid labels such as I published in reputed journal, I come from a top ranked institution, or I'm going to attend a prestigious conference, things like this. Rather use evidence of quality. Why is it a reputed journal? What makes your institution top ranked, and so on. Third, again, something in India we tend to make, even though most of the research work is done by the researchers, but we tend to show it like it has been supervisor led. MSCA application is not going to be that like this. You have to treat your supervisor in your application as a mentor and collaborator, and not as a senior authority. So do not mention him as the godfather that who is going to help you in achieving everything. It should read like it's you are going to lead and you are going to do everything, and he will only be as a mentor. Again, the point Christina also mentioned, that our context is very different, and reviewers from Europe may not be knowing about our institution schemes and career stages. So if you are explaining them, especially in your CV part, please make them understand what these terms like UGC net or UGC JRF, ICSSR, DBT, DST, TET, all that means and how competitive they are. So provide them with some context of what are, and do not assume they might be knowing it. And lastly, very important, especially for those coming from the social sciences and humanities like me, and especially if you are thinking of doing your research in India, on Indian context, do not make your context India the only reason that why this project matters. After all, I mean, it is after all a European funding. So explain why India is important, why the data from India is important, or why this specific problematization in India, what you have chosen, is going to do to the for scientific purposes, what is going to, how is it going to contribute to science, why is it important for European context, and what is the relevance for it. You should ask, like, it should answer, your proposal should answer that why should the EU fund this research. I mean, why not then you do this research in India alone. For me, I specifically mentioned that most of the theories in innovation, or most of the theories of innovation uh, are coming by studying the European context or the US context, or what we call as the global north. So it is important to study places like India, which are emerging, and how they can contribute to the scientific theory, and take this Indian understanding of technological innovation on European research institutions also, which are known for proposing theories and coming out with different frameworks for understanding technological innovations. With this, I will stop. I just want to wish everyone good luck, and please remember that uh, grant writing is not going to be the end. If you are going to stay in academia, then this is just the first of many grants you can write. So stay motivated and stay hopeful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gautam, for giving us a trajectory of your journey with the MSCA, and I think was really excellent, especially also the key advices that you also it was your second attempt which was successful, and also you learned from your not mistakes, but you learned from the experience at the first attempt, things which you were not considering and which you then, implemented and in your strategies. Also, I think that was really great to see, how you approached, the second time. It's a lot you can learn, of course, from the first time. As you said, it's not a guarantee that you will get it the first time. You might have to apply a second or third time, but it's as Rocky said, it's not about how hard you hit, how hard you can get hit. I like that as well, so very much. Your concluding slide. So thank you so much. And I would also ask Rena, if you could also just in a few minutes, just also again maybe tell the key strategies you used. What kind of support you could get and find, and also what would be your key advices to our audience.
The last slide of Dr. Cottam's carrying Indian academic expert experience into
Yeah.
MSCA is really, really, I think it puts everything together. And this is what I have also learned with time is, don't use too many adjectives, right? So it's just like be clear cut. Like if you want to publish in a journal, by this stage, you should know which journal you want to publish in. You can't just say, oh, I'll be publishing in XYZ
Mm.
journal. I think that mostly sums up the majority of the things that I have also said. And for me, I would like to say it was one of the many one of the few collaborative experiences that I've had right at the proposal writing, segment, because when I when you register yourself on the website, I had to get everybody on board. The Joint Research Management Office, there were three people from there. Then you had your mentor. So five of us were working on it simultaneously. So in a sense, I would also say if you are going for it, you should go for it all the way. In a sense, you should get everything together, because I feel you will also be taking up people's time, and you will be engaging with people. So in a sense, you have to make time for it if you really want to apply for it.
Mm.
And the other thing, I think, yeah, I think most things were covered, but the simple things that we might not have taken like very seriously probably during a PhD time, the impact thing
Mm.
is pretty important, because as all of us have been talking about how there is more and more attention towards impact now, as I feel, because at this stage of all our journeys, like your PhD is a few years of experience, I feel like we are quite set in the academic space that we are quite well read, right? We know what we want to do, we know what the gaps are, but we might have to move a little bit beyond a student thinking and move towards a more leadership kind of thinking, because that's what the project also enables you to do. So think of it as not simply a project for advancing your intellectual skills, which it is overall, but also how it can help you, in any way. And that's why I say, you think of all the craziest ideas that you have had for your work to be carried forward, the kind of probably the community projects you want to do for like art installations, you want to do documentaries, all these things within the scope of research. And who are you engaging with is I think showing how you can go beyond your own disciplinary bounds to translate the knowledge you've gained for larger use.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Thank you so much, both of
Thank
you.
you.
I think, Christine, you are back with us. I understand that you've been in the background typing, trying to answer as many questions as possible in this very short period of time. But what do you think? Very excellent examples we have here today. The two speakers have been wonderful testimonies, right?
Definitely, yes, and I look forward to these events, mostly to listen to the testimonies, yes, because they are the real story. And it also shows that there is no just one way of doing it, and as you can apply for the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship in any field, and also there are so many different career paths that a person could have that still lead to being a great researcher, independent researcher. And there was a common question that I received now in the question and answer tool, but also that I often receive. So how many publications do I need to be successful? There is no answer to that. There are different ways of progressing as a researcher, and also when you apply, you are judged according to the stage of the career that you are in. So, for example, if you just defended your PhD, you are not expected to have a long list of publications. But of course, if you have 8 years already, then you are expected to have more publications. But you might also have a different career experience in your during your 8 years. So I would recommend each one. I would recommend the following strategy. And as you can't, I mean, at this stage now, you cannot change your CV. I mean, it is as it is. But you should think of an approach that you show it everything as a strength. So, for example, if you worked a couple of years outside research, maybe practicing in your field of study, then you can show that as a strength. You don't have to apologize for the time not spent in research. Rather, you show that, see what an excellent grounding I have in the practice, that I can this understanding, these connections, this work that I've done, I can take it with me to become a better researcher in the future. And I have included in the chat box, not in the question and answer, in the chat box, but I see that I did the same mistake that I did last time, that I accidentally only the other panelists can see it, so I will write it to everybody. So I have included here a link to a very useful tool that I somehow failed to include on my slide. It is a framework by the European Commission. It is called the European Competence Framework for Researchers, and it helps you to understand what are the competencies that you already have and that you should be developing during your fellowship. So it is not made for MSCA, but it can be used in MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship applications. And it helps you reflect on what is the stage that I'm now, what are the possible paths forward, how can I explain best to the evaluators the skills and knowledge that I already have, and what must I do to become successful in the future as a researcher. So that is something that every researcher should be aware of, this tool, and it will really help you to phrase your training and career vision.
Thank you, Christine. I think I think you have seen there are some questions which are very similar, of the attendees. But just to stay with the publication, I just wanted to ask Reena and Gautam, like, was it something which you felt like, did you have enough that you felt it was important in your during your proposal period that you have enough, or you don't have enough publications, like, or what did your supervisor recommend you on that? Like, maybe you can just, because that's often a question, people are concerned about if they don't have enough publications, if they are good candidates for the fellowship. Renan, maybe you could say so.
You want to go first, Reena?
No,
Yeah.
you can go. You are on.
Okay, no, I mean, from my first attempt, I had just submitted my PhD. Back then. People who had submitted their PhD and having 4 years of research experience were eligible to apply. So I remember I did not have publications back then. I think I had 3 publications, and if you have to like measure them through some of these quantitative indicators, they were not like Q1 journals or very top rank. But I never got a comment from either the reviewer or from my host institution that he has not published in very high rank journals. So I don't think it matters. What matters is that whether the researcher has intent to do it in future, and if he can show. So PhD is only like everybody has always told me PhD is a driving license. Now you have to go on a highway. So that driving license should be enough that okay, he can do it now if he has given the right resources and everything. So my advice is still that, and of course Europe and all are investing a lot on a different kind of research assessment where quantitative metrics do not matter at all. I, so don't be bothered about number of publications. At the same time, make sure that what you are submitting is not predatory also. So uh, try to publish in journals which are indexed, which are in your field, but at the same time, do not matter like if it's not 10 impact factor, 20 impact factor, and so on. Yeah.
Thank you. Reena?
Yeah. Yeah, for me, as Gautam mentioned, also the thing about social science interdisciplinary work is there are no high impact. The impact don't go as high as how the sciences and engineering journals might go. So, there is no comparison per se. And yeah, publications didn't come up as and it was never mentioned. And
Yeah.
for me, the one publication that got mentioned, as I said before, was my IPCC contributing author, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change
Yeah.
report, which I was part of as a I was not even a lead author. I was a contributing author, who found a place. So that was, I was asked, because of the nature of impact it has, it being an international document, that it could be placed above. So that was the only comment I received about the publication. And I think one thing for us, for us at India, is the Indian institutes, make you publish 2 papers before your PhD. So
Yeah.
in a way, we are already in a good place once you have the PhD, because a lot of European institutes, it's not a mandatory thing. So I think the publication race already begins for us during PhD,
Yeah.
which doesn't happen as much in the UK, where
Mm.
people wait a year after a PhD or something like
Mhm.
that. So
Okay.
yeah, it was not a deterrent to anything. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you so much, both of you. Christine, do you have some questions? Have you spotted some which you think are now would be good, to address to everyone? Because there are some specific questions which are like for the research's own application process, but some more general questions you saw.
Yes, some people who are attending today's webinar are still in the process of looking for a host institution.
Yeah.
And I would say that it is quite a difficult stage, and there are no bulletproof recommendations. Many people say that they have written to several professors but received no answers. I'm not surprised by this. This is a very common thing. And imagine being a professor who receives 20 of such emails every day, and you are very busy supervising, teaching, administrating. You might not have the energy and the time to respond to each and every one of them. So think of what would make such a renowned professor to answer your email. So, but it's not always dependent on you. It's also useful to use other ways of contacting. So I don't know how these 2 examples, Renan and Gautama, how you contacted your supervisor, but I
Mm.
think the more effective ways are via contacts through conferences, for example, when you meet them, but also if your supervisor has contacts with the other professors and they put you in touch, etc. So it's not always very effective to just send a lot of emails, although this is a strategy that can be used. And also have a look at the Euraccess portal. The Euraccess portal has a lot of hosts also
Yeah.
looking for candidates,
Yeah.
and they are even in a worse position than you, because they cannot email anyone. They can't send direct emails, so they have to put their hosting offers on the Euraccess portal and wait for someone to contact them. So you can use this as well. And the other recurring question before I give floor back to you is about writing in a convincing but concise way. And I see a lot of applications where you could cut many sentences. And a good trick that I would recommend you is look at your sentence. Could this sentence be taken from your proposal and be put in another proposal without changing? And if this is the case, then just delete the sentence. So if you state you have a lot of sentences that my previous experience is excellent and suitable for this proposal, delete it and just go with the actual content of why is that so. So get rid of the empty statements. Prefer always, if you are short of room, prefer always the proof, the facts, the numbers and the examples. And there is a question, is the Radiance matchmaking platform for hosting office used? Yes, it is used. Candidates, postdoctoral fellowship candidates can not post there directly, but it is used for organizations to promote their hosting office as well. So yes, Radiance matchmaking in addition to the Euraccess portal.
Thank you, Christine. I think this is very important what you're saying. Like, if you're now starting to look for a host institution supervisor, you might be hitting a wall, because as also Gautam mentioned, summer is coming up in Europe, which is a very important time. Universities are closed, researchers are, either they're off or they're traveling. So it's going to be difficult now to, it's not impossible, but it's going to be difficult now to find, a supervisor who might are ready to host you. And as Christine said, there are like platforms where you can look for hosting offers. They actually start already very early in the year, even before the call is opened. On the Your Access portal, on hosting offers, you can see that there are like several hundreds of hosting offers always every year. Institutions, organizations looking for candidates. There are even master classes which are offered, seminars for potential candidates. So there's a lot possible before the call opens. So that's also very important, to keep your eyes open to start. If you're too late for this year, will have the chance next year as well. And I think it's very good now we have Gautam and Renan here. This question about the supervisor, how to find the right host institution. Where can I find a supervisor who would be interested in my project idea? So maybe you could, Renan and Gautam, you could just briefly mention, how did you find your host institution supervisor? What was your strategy or approach?
Yeah, so I can go first again. Uh, so the strategy I used was that, as I mentioned, that most of the research from in the field of science and technology innovation studies was coming from Europe. So at that time, I was aware of which are the leading institutions in Europe, and I hope that everybody who is going to apply now know like what are the best research groups or what are the research groups who are working in their field. It's very important. Now you have AI tools. Please make use of AI tools to find like who are the people working in your research area. And one good way is to find who are you citing in your research papers, where are they based. So that's another way to find out. And of course, there are lots of, again, like coming from India, we tend to think in terms of hierarchy. We always think that if it's someone is at a professor level, they are the best supervisor. Again, I
Mm,
would advise you what Christine also said, that people who are at the phase of being assistant professors, associate professors, they are also very ideal people
mm,
to host you because they are already there in they if they are hired means that they had some potential and they have potential to super mentor your projects also, and they are the people who are looking for collaborations, who are looking for uh, prospective students for doing postdoc and PhDs. One way is to go for them, and second is that if the professor is not responding, maybe you can directly email to the research offices sharing your CV and a one page project idea in a very
mm,
accessible language, and ask
mhm,
them if they find you a supervisor which suits you, because they are also having a database of the professors looking for students. And
mhm,
second is, please email the directors or the head of departments also and ask them if there is some professor in their department who is looking for prospective supervisors. Sometimes they have their own email groups and they can forward your CV and your project idea to all the faculty and ask them to reach out to you if they are interested.
mm. Thank you, Gautam. That's very, very, very good advice. And Renan, how was it in your case?
Yeah, for me, I would say the internet. Internet is a great place to be because before I started Marie Curie, also professors would publish on Twitter or now LinkedIn saying, we are looking for students to support. So many a times, you do cross paths with the persons you've read or you're willing to, going to read. So they do reply. However, I would go back to the thing about the deadlines and the timelines. Please be aware of that, and don't get disheartened because of the delays, because um, nobody's bound to respond to people in that way, right? Because they also
Mm,
need their time. So for me, we were actually going to write for another project, and the UK was already out of because of Brexit and
yeah.
stuff. We weren't sure if they were allowed under MSCA, but we heard that we were able to apply for it. And he was somebody, I would say, he also best to be with a person who probably is nice and is willing to listen to you, and supports your ideas. So in that sense, I had been interacting with him over a few years, like since
Mhm,
a couple of years, because he would come by my previous PhD institute. We had a couple of chats, so in a sense I already knew him from before. and then he was willing to support it for me with support the Marie Curie application for me. Yeah. So it was a lot of social media, and now also I see if you looked up LinkedIn and stuff, people do like last week or a couple of months ago, I did share somebody from Finland who was looking for a supervisor. There are professors who are looking for supervisors
Mm.
all across Europe, and the expression of interests come out like early in Jan, Feb. So, I mean,
Yeah,
social media being used for the right things
yeah,
sometimes, yeah.
good. Thank you so much. Christine, have you spotted some more questions which you think it's good to address now? Because we are got like a 4, 5 minutes more left. I see you've answered quite a few, so thank you for that.
Yes, but I will never be able to answer all of them, so I apologize already in advance. I hope also it is it is you got several answers actually through the presentations themselves,
Mm,
and just as a word of encouragement that really the writing of the application, the best application is born between you, your vision, your goals, but with close collaboration with the host institution and supervisor. They can give you a lot of input, both regarding the structure, readability, but also, of course, the content. Many things become much easier if you are able to collaborate very well with your host institution. For example, understanding the the environment in which you are going to do this work, both legal environment, but also the physical environment, etc. So all of that is much easier with a good collaboration with a host. And many experienced host institutions provide a lot of services. They have specific people who help grant writing. They can give feedback and give you access to some materials, etc. But it is possible, very much possible, to also write more or less alone, with, of course, support from your supervisor. But as both of our speakers said, if you go for it, then go all the way, because if you don't go all the way, then for sure you will not be successful. You should you should pay attention to details in the template and make sure that the evaluator has all the information that they need to have to be able to
mm,
evaluate. And some really it pays off to use the additional material. So the handbook will be very useful for you. I trust my colleagues who have written these handbooks, and really all the feedback that we get across Europe or even globally is very supportive of this tool, specifically handbook
yeah.
tool. But then also the materials of the European Commission itself. Don't hesitate to read the Horizon Europe program guide. It really gives you the information that you need. For example, some of the aspects are quite tricky to understand what is understood by the gender aspects in research. It is not so easy to understand at first
Mhm,
glance. Many people mistake it with gender balance or gender equal opportunities, but what is required here is gender taking how you take gendering into account in your methods,
mhm,
rather than what is the gender balance in your research groups. So to understand these details, use the additional materials, read
yeah.
the obligatory documents very carefully, and you will find many of these answers that you're looking for there. So yeah, good luck
Thank
with writing.
Thank you so much, Christine. I think this was a very good concluding remarks actually from your side that yeah, there is a lot out there and many questions, have already the answers. You just have to like look at those links which we will also share with you, and also the handbook is there. And there's a lot also out in the internet. A lot of postdoctoral fellows or alumni also are sharing very openly, about their application process, and so there is a lot of material you will find. I think what we try to do today is like just really a bit more, give you a structured understanding of the different parts of the proposal, and of course have very successful candidates with us today who can also could give you some insights. And I'm looking at the time. We just have like a minute left before we conclude. And so I just wanted to ask both Renan and Gautam, like just your concluding remarks, your final key advice for those who are right now preparing a proposal. Let's start with Renan.
I would say the number of months that ERC gives you to write the proposal is required. Don't think you can, one day sit on it for like a week and finish it off, because you have a lot of institutional back and forth. Also, the fact that the institution is willing to write it with you, I think, should be respected. And you should begin a big. I mean, unfortunately, I was also in. I started a little late, but I did start well in time. I started around June, July. But thankfully, everything was in place, and then I followed the timeline. But the 4 months, I mean, you can't think, oh, I'll see it when the deadline. It's not like writing any other research proposal ever. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Renan. And Gautam?
Yeah, final concluding remarks from my side again would be around that give it a lot of time. Proposal writing requires at least 6 to 8 weeks of full-time writing, so keep that timeline in mind. And as I said, if you are already late, don't lose hope. Already start preparing for the next year, and for the current time, find something in between, a filler job or filler postdoc in India, which I did. And once you get it, you can always resign and move forward. And take this grant writing not only as being awarded as the final step, but your 10-page proposal in itself is going to be very important. And even if you are not awarded, you can always like repurpose that 10-pager into different fellowships. MSc is not the only fellowship to come to Europe. If you are interested in that, there is Humboldt Fellowship, there is Stint Fellowship, and there are other fellowships for all the countries. And you can always try to repurpose this award for other grants also. And as I said, I'm very happy to help any of you, especially from the social sciences. If you struggle on how to put a two-way transfer of knowledge, how to have a secondment, what kind of non-academic placement you should have, what impact you should have, and things like that, please contact me. As I mentioned, my email ID, and you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to help you.
Thank you, Gautam. That's very kind of you. I would like to just take a quick screenshot with the three of you. Okay, 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, so that's done. And yeah, once again, thank you so much to all the three speakers, Christine, Renan, and Gautam. I think it was a very useful and interesting 2 hours. Thank you for giving your time. And of course, also thank you for all the attendees who have stayed with us until the end. It's still over 100. It looks, they are very serious about this proposal and this fellowship. So we're very happy, and good luck to everyone. Yeah, it's still, you still got like more than almost 3 months, 2.5 months or something time. And yeah, and we will, as I said, we will share everything, all the materials of today's session with you, probably by tomorrow. And yeah, all the best. Have a nice evening in India and a good lunch break in Europe. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for bye.
Bye.